In our headlines on this Friday, November 29th, here in South Korea. Retail sales, factory output and facility investment all lost ground in October, marking the first triple decline since May, fueling wider concerns about the Korean economy. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden hopes the incoming Trump administration, quote, rethinks its tariff plans for its regional trade partners, namely Canada and Mexico. Back on the local front, K-pop girl group NewJeans held a press conference on Thursday to announce intentions to leave its agency ADOR amid failure to address grievances. Factory output, retail sales and facility investment all surrendered ground in October, marking the first triple decline since May. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun covers the latest findings.
South Korea's economy faced a setback in October, with production, consumption and investment all declining for the first time in 5 months. The data released by Statistics Korea on Friday underscores a persistent weakness in domestic demand. The country's industrial production index dipped 0.3% from the previous month, marking the second consecutive month of decline after a brief rebound in August. While manufacturing output increased by 0.4% due to a surge in semiconductor production, other sectors such as the auto sector faced challenges due to factory fires and strikes. Construction output contracted for the 6th consecutive month, the longest such streak since 2008. The decline was attributed to a slowdown in both civil engineering and building construction. Retail sales also fell by 0.4%, marking 2 straight months of decline. Although sales of non-durable goods like food and beverages increased, sales of durable goods like home appliances dropped significantly.
In October, there was a base effect from September because new telecommunication devices were released and bought that month. Also, the warmer weather this year led to lower sales of home appliances and heating products.
Meanwhile, facility investment fell by 5.8% month-on-month, largely due to decreased demand for machinery used in semiconductor manufacturing. This marked the largest decline since January of this year. This latest data follows the Bank of Korea's decision to cut the interest rate by another 25 basis points on Thursday, marking the first time in 15 years that the central bank has lowered the rate twice in a row. The BOK cited weak domestic demand as a reason behind the rate cut, as lowering the interest rate helps to stimulate economic activity by making borrowing cheaper. Experts, however, are doubtful about how much of an effect this could have on the country's declining construction sector.
Construction investment has been pretty poor for a long period, like 3 or 4 years. So I think it is not just because of the interest rate, it is a kind of a structural problem in the construction industry. So
going forward, the BOK said it would continue to monitor domestic economic indicators to set the pace for further cuts. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The European Union has granted the green light to Korean Air's takeover of Air-Asiana Airlines, hammering down regulatory hurdles to the creation of the 7th largest carrier worldwide. Our Shin has details.
The European Union's competition authority granted final approval for Korean Air's high-profile acquisition of Air-Asiana Airlines on Thursday. The combined airline will become the world's 7th largest mega carrier in terms of passenger volume. Korea's national flag carrier said that the European Commission concluded its review of the airline, fulfilling all required conditions. In February this year, the European Commission granted conditional approval with 2 preconditions. One was the operation of a replacement carrier for the 4 overlapping European routes from Incheon to Barcelona, Frankfurt, Paris, and Rome. Korean Air has designated T-Way Air as the replacement carrier. And the second condition was the sale of Asiana's cargo business, for which a legally binding agreement has been sealed with Air Incheon. Korean Air has now gained permission from 13 out of 14 countries, with a review by the United States pending. The EU's approval has been submitted to the U.S. authorities, and the Department of Justice is expected to conclude its review of the deal by the end of December, which is assumed to be a green light, as the DOJ normally contemplates legal action only if there is concern of a merger's potential monopoly. It has taken 4 years since the deal was first initiated in November of 2020. However, there are pending concerns from the merger that need to be resolved. Although Korean Air had earlier pledged to not implement any forced job cuts during the acquisition, industry officials and employees remain skeptical as there will be redundancy in duties performed by personnel of both airlines. For passengers, there remains a dilemma over how to merge the mileage points from both carriers. Korean Air's points are generally valued higher in the market, which means it is unlikely that the mileage points will be converted at a 1-to-1 ratio. Korean Air will keep Air-Asiana as a subsidiary for 2 years before fully subsuming the carrier. The successfully merged mega carrier is expected to have a workforce of 30,000 and around 230 aircraft. 이은진, Arirang News.
The building of 2 nuclear reactors by a South Korean consortium in the Czech Republic will be financed through state loans from the Czech government. Now, this is according to a Czech official amid rampant allegations of dumping practices. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power was selected as the preferred bidder for the multi-billion-dollar project earlier in July, and rumors have since spread that the deal was sealed with a promise of financial support and dumping at a low price. In an interview on Thursday, Thomas Eller, Acting Director General for Nuclear Energy at the Czech Ministry of Industry, added that price was only one factor among over 60 criteria included in the bidding process. U.S. President Joe Biden hopes the incoming Trump administration, quote, rethinks its tariff plans for its regional trade partners. Our foreign affairs correspondent Pyongyang reports.
U.S. President Biden expressed hope that President-elect Trump will reconsider his plans to impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, Biden stressed that the tariffs would ruin relations with the neighboring countries.
I hope he rethinks it. I think it's a counterproductive thing to do. You know, look, one of the things you've heard me say before that we have an unusual situation in America. We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and 2 allies, Mexico and Canada. And the last thing we need to do is begin to screw up those relationships.
The comments come as Trump pledged to impose a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Mexico and Canada on day 1 of his presidency. He said on social media on Monday that the tariffs would remain in place until the 2 countries clamp down on drugs, particularly fentanyl, and migrants crossing their borders illegally. According to data from the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, Mexico and Canada are the 2nd and 3rd highest suppliers of goods to the U.S., while China, which Trump's proposed plan would also impact, exports the most to the United States. But Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum showed confidence on Thursday that a tariff war with the United States could be averted when asked how a trade war would affect the country.
There will be no potential tariff war.
The Mexican leader had earlier warned that Trump's tariff plan would affect the U.S. economy and American companies that have been in Mexico for decades. Meanwhile, amid concerns that Trump could also impose tariffs on South Korea upon his return to the White House, the U.S. Congressional Research Service explained in its latest report that many economists argue tariff reductions under the free trade agreement between Seoul and Washington have not contributed significantly to the increase in the bilateral trade deficit. The FTA between South Korea and the U.S., which entered into force in March 2012, has reduced and eliminated tariff and non-tariff barriers on manufactured goods, agricultural products, and services. During Trump's first term, trade tensions have been evident, with Trump threatening to withdraw from the FTA and imposing new U.S. global import restrictions on some South Korean industries, including steel. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
And here on the Korean Peninsula, Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov landed in Pyongyang earlier on this Friday. Now, this is according to Russian state media TASS, which added that he was welcomed by his North Korean counterpart, No Kwang-chol. Belousov will reportedly sit down with a number of North Korean military and political officials. The visit comes as North Korean troops fight alongside Russian soldiers against Ukraine. Discussions are widely expected to focus on further military cooperation. And military authorities here say 5 Chinese and 6 Russian aircraft entered the Korean Air Defense Identification Zone today. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the aircraft flew in and around the zone between 9:35 a.m. and 2 p.m. on this Friday. They approached from the East and South Seas but did not violate South Korea's airspace. The military detected the aircraft before they entered the zone and deployed fighter jets as a precautionary measure. Now, an air defense identification zone is unilaterally declared by a nation in a bid to track aircraft advancing into its territorial airspace for security purposes. Chinese and Russian aircraft have entered and left the South Korean air defense identification zone without incident in recent times. And South Korea has developed a long-range surface-to-air missile system using domestic technology. The development was commended in a ceremony on this Friday at the Agency for Defense Development in Daejeon with Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun in attendance. The system is reportedly able to shoot down targets at altitudes of 50 to 60 kilometers and will play a crucial role in the military's air defense strategy. Now, mass production will begin next year and deployment planned for the mid to late 2020s. Meanwhile, President Yoon has applauded the latest advancement in defense, calling it, quote, groundbreaking in efforts to deter North Korea's missile threats. On the K-pop front, members of NewJeans held an unexpected press conference back on Thursday, announcing intentions to leave their agency, ADOR. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us why.
K-pop girl group NewJeans announced on Thursday that they will end their contract with their agency ADOR, a subsidiary of HYBE, and start their own journey. During the emergency press conference, the 5-member group said neither HYBE nor ADOR have shown any willingness to improve the situation they are in.
ADOR lacks both the will and the ability to protect NewJeans. It's a waste of time to stay, and it also causes mental pain.
While saying they will no longer be ADOR artists with the exclusive contract terminated, the members said they will freely pursue activities they truly desire, while promising to do a pre-scheduled and contracted activities as planned, including advertisements. Regarding any legal measures, NewJeans clarified they won't be filing for an injunction to suspend the validity of the exclusive contract, as ADOR and HYBE are the ones that violated the terms, and they would not have any obstacle in continuing their activities. The group's contract termination follows the company's dispute with its former CEO, Min. After months of tensions over HYBE's allegations that Min had attempted to take control of the label and NewJeans, the agency removed her as ADOR's CEO in August. On November 13th, NewJeans had sent an official list of changes the group wants to be made by their agency ADOR within 14 days of receiving the paper document, which was November 14th. Their demands included the reinstatement of Min as CEO and a formal apology from the manager of another rookie group under HYBE subsidiary Islet over alleged workplace harassment against member Hani. But none of the corrective actions they demanded were properly made, said the members.
We have less than 4 hours left of the time we agreed upon. If there was any intention to rectify the situation, it could have been clearly shown through actions long before now.
After the announcement, ADOR issued a statement expressing regret over the group's decision, even before it gave a response to group's demand letter and without sufficient consideration. While stressing it has not violated any terms, ADOR claimed that the contract with NewJeans remains valid. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, K-pop boy band ATEEZ has been taking global music charts by storm. Our Ian tells us how.
K-pop boy group ATEEZ's new album is taking over the global charts. Despite the songs featuring more Korean lyrics than English, language was no barrier for their global fans. The group's latest album, Golden Hour Part 2, released on November 15th, topped the Billboard 200 chart for the second time, earning over 180,000 equivalent album units in the US during the week ending November 21st. Since BTS first reached number 1 on the Billboard 200 in 2018, a total of 8 K-pop groups, including ATEEZ, have achieved this feat. ATEEZ is the only group not from one of the big 4 agencies, HYBE, SM, JYP, or YG, but from KQ Entertainment.
ATEEZ connects with fans through music and storytelling that transcends language. Their Korean lyrics, paired with powerful messages and high-quality music, have earned global recognition, reflecting K-pop's strong presence in the international market. The group's emphasis on detail and storytelling in their performances, music videos, and albums creates an immersive experience that has driven their worldwide success.
Today, people primarily discover music, especially K-pop, through videos. How does this lead fans to connect deeply with the music and overcome language barriers? Music critic Kim Won-sik explains.
The way we consume music has evolved significantly. ATEEZ, for instance, captures attention with their powerful performances. Now, once engaged, listeners can explore the song's meaning. Even if the song is in Korean, fans become devoted so they can fully relate to the music, allowing Korean songs to gain widespread popularity.
ATEEZ's new album also made a strong impact on European charts. On November 22nd, the UK's official charts announced that the album landed at number 4 on the official albums chart, becoming the first ever K-pop group to secure 4 consecutive top 10 albums in the UK. The album also ranked in the top 10 of the album charts of the French Music Association SNEP in the German official chart. A study from last year revealed that K-pop songs charting in the top 400 of Circle Chart, a Korean album sales tracker, in the first half of the year had more English lyrics compared to 5 years ago. This shift was primarily aimed at reaching a wider audience and establishing broader international appeal, as the key to popular music lies in connecting with listeners. Today, music fans are embracing Korean songs like never before, proving that language is no longer a barrier to connection. Music has shifted from being created to connect with fans to fans creating their own bond with the music. 이은희, Arirang News.
And a musical producer here has been making remarkable strides on stages both at home and overseas. Now, ultimately, he hopes to put on the global stage a theatrical production in Korean to prove that language is no barrier in musicals. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin met up with him.
Just like the lyrics, Shin Chun-soo's career is roaring on. A trailblazer in Korean theater, he's the president and main producer of OD Company, one of the country's leading musical production companies. This year, he made history as the first Asian to serve as the sole lead producer of a Broadway musical. The Great Gatsby, a stage adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald's classic novel, has been running at the Broadway Theater since April, grossing over $1 million every week since its opening, and even winning a Tony Award for Best Costume Design. And the momentum doesn't stop there. Next year, the production will make its West End debut. So, what's the secret to crafting a musical that's set to perform at the world's 2 greatest theater capitals?
The Great Gatsby is a timeless masterpiece with themes like the pursuit of love and struggles across social classes that feel so relevant today. We wanted the production to feel like one grand party, combining dazzling stage aesthetics with a powerful sense of tragedy.
But Gatsby is just one chapter in Shin's career. Back at home, the beloved Korean production of Jekyll and Hyde is gearing up for its 9th season.
Jekyll and Hyde helped me establish myself as a producer. At the time, it was seen as revolutionary, bringing together fresh talent from actors and staff to producers. For this 20th anniversary production, we focused on every detail, crafting it as a gift, not just for the audience, but for ourselves as well.
With a repertoire that includes hits like Grease, Sweeney Todd, Man of La Mancha, and Il Tenore, how does he decide which stories to bring to life?
Classic literature has universal emotions that connect with everyone, and classic musicals have songs that leave a lasting impression. Sometimes I take risks with experimental works that push boundaries, but at the heart of it all is my commitment to creating high-quality productions for the audience.
Shin also shared his vision for bringing Korean musicals to a broader audience.
I remember being a British producer in 2001 who was surprised to hear Korean even had musicals. Now, with the growing cultural and economic influence, Korean musicals are gaining global attention. To keep growing, we must see the world as our stage and support young talent to create works with universal appeal.
And he'll keep working hard to make this happen.
My next goal is to stage a production with Korean actors performed in Korean. I believe musicals can transcend language, and this will showcase the talent of our actors and the excellence of Korean musicals.
It's a decades-long passion that's driving Korean musicals to new heights on the world stage. 송유진, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. The Australian Senate on Thursday passed a bill banning social media for children under 16 years of age, following approval from the House of Representatives the day before. The new social media law targets platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, which will be liable for fines of up to $33 million if they fail to prevent children from holding accounts. Among the world's strictest laws regarding social media, the bill passed the Senate by 34 votes to 19 on Thursday. While it is not the first attempt by a country to restrict social media exposure for children, the law sets the highest age limit yet, with no exemptions for existing users or children with parental consent. While critics question how exactly the ban will work and its impact on the social connectivity of Australian children, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said previously that he wants peace of mind for parents and for young Australians to have a childhood. Now, the ban will not take effect for about a year, giving the social media platforms time to figure out how to implement the policy to avoid the penalties. Indonesian emergency services are on full alert as they continue searching for survivors after the death toll from flash floods and landslides in North Sumatra province reached at least 27 on Thursday. Indonesian authorities said the number of casualties may rise as tourist locations have also been hit. The country's National Disaster Agency said Thursday that torrential rain since last week destroyed houses and farms in mountainous regions, many of which remain covered in mud and fallen trees. Authorities also said some vehicles remain trapped on roads around the region's largest city of Medan, where bodies from a tourist bus were recovered earlier. Local elections were also affected, with floods closing some polling stations in the city. The Colombian Navy announced Wednesday the capture of 6 narcotics smuggling submarines as part of a successful international anti-drug operation. According to Colombian Navy's Vice Admiral, the 6-week International Orion naval campaign, involving 10 international organizations and 62 countries, seized a total of 1,408 metric tons of narcotics, including 225 tons of cocaine and over 1,000 tons of marijuana, from various locations, including cultivation areas between Brazil and Paraguay. Now, more than 400 people were reportedly arrested across several countries as part of the operation. Thursday marked one of the U.S.'s biggest holidays of the year, Thanksgiving, with celebrations not just at homes, but on the streets with annual parades. Thousands of New Yorkers came out for the annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, despite wet weather, to watch marching bands, performances by pop artists, and giant balloons of America's favorite characters. Chicago held its 90th annual Thanksgiving Day parade, also on Thursday, with spectators cheering diverse cultural acts, including Korean traditional music and dance performances. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
This morning, Seoul plummeted to minus 3.4 degrees Celsius, which was the coldest morning this winter. Even during the daytime, it only rose to 3 degrees, but the feels-like temperature was colder at 1 degree. The sky will stay a little cloudy this weekend, but it will still be good to enjoy outdoor activities as the cold spell slows down a bit. Until today, it will rain or snow a little more in southern Gyeonggi-do province, the Chungcheong-do provinces, the Jeollado provinces, Gyeongsang-buk-do province, and Jeju Island. With a heavy snow advisory in place in the mountainous areas of Jeju Island, up to 7 centimeters will accumulate. Rain will fall in the central parts of the country tomorrow as well. Tomorrow, cold morning is expected in most parts of the country. Daejeon -1, Daegu and Gyeongju 1 degree. Highs will move up to 12 degrees in Gwangju, Busan 13 degrees. Mild conditions with a daytime temperature of 12 degrees in Seoul will be seen on Monday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.
How to survive in Korea. Cafes. Step 1. Find a seat. Before ordering, find a seat. Laptop ID, smartphone, jacket, whatever that can mark your territory. But no bites. It's a little too big. Step 2. Pick up. We do not ask or call your name. We call out, B69번 고객님. The buzzer will vibrate when your order is ready at the counter. Wait, got your straw? Keep the top of the wrapper on. Doing this is more hygienic. Step 3. Cafe etiquette. If you need to use your laptop, find a seat next to a socket. No extra charge for using electricity. But if you're staying over 3 hours, how about ordering another drink or dessert? Step 4. Last bite standing. There's a mysterious custom in Korea. The last bite standing. When there's about 1 bite left of that cake, nobody will go for it. You might be tempted, but don't be hasty. Right before you get up, take the last piece, saying that you simply can't waste food, or just leave it. It will save a few calories. Did you survive at the cafe? Did someone behind the counter catch your eye? Go for the same drink every single day.
오늘도 아이스 말차 라떼 드실 거죠?
You might make an impression.
누구도 우리에게 질문을 하지 않는 처음 같은 곳으로 도망가기 좋은 날 언젠가 다시 스칠 날 있겠지만 모른 척 지나가겠지 최선을 다한 넌 받아들이겠지만 서툴렀던 난 아직도 기적을 꿈꾼다
K-drama, the charm of Korea that captivates the world. Love like a K-drama. A story of us where hope and despair coexist. Fun and refreshingly satisfying. K-dramas carry warmth and move people's hearts. Meet the fascinating stories of Korea through K-dramas.
Robots account for 10% of Korea's workforce, making the country the #1 adopter of robotics in industrial settings. Now, this is according to the International Federation of Robotics, as pundits here continue to ponder ways to address the shrinking labor market amid the world's lowest birth rate. With more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome. You're watching Press Perspective for this Friday, November 29th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. Now today we touch upon the growing presence of robots and foreign workers in domestic workplaces as Korea grapples with a shrinking workforce. For more on this, I have Colin Marshall, a writer here in Korea. Colin, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I also have Yang Chen-hao, a journalist also based here in South Korea. Chen-hao, it's good to have you back.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here.
Right, Chen-hao, let's begin then with details about the coverage by the British online newspaper, The Independent, about South Korea becoming the first to fill 10% of its workforce with robots. I also believe you covered separately about Korea's employment of robots in the workplace.
We know that South Korea has taken much efforts on developing robots and AI techniques this year, and it's becoming the top country which is adopting robot for works, whether it's in factories or in restaurants. And when talking about the density of the robots, now it has more than 1,000 robots per 10,000 employees here in South Korea, and having a long lead ahead other countries like Singapore, Germany, and China. And since 2018, the density of the robots has increased by 5% on average each year. And I've also covered the issues of the owners who tends to apply more robots in workplaces. During the pandemic, the concept of on-contact, the so-called on-tact, it had risen, and that has triggered many restaurants in South Korea, especially in Seoul, trying to import the serving robots. And you can see after the pandemic, like AI techniques has been improved a lot, and the robots are becoming more popular. And then for South Korea, it has very ideal environment to push the robot being utilized widely, because the chaebols and also the mid-small enterprises, those companies, they are developing many different kinds of robots and techniques. And also Korea has a very good infrastructure in the field of communication, such as Wi-Fi and electronic facilities and databases. For example, I've covered a Korean beef restaurant near Chun-soo, which has adopted 16 AI serving robots, which is the most in the world. And it is cooperated with the robot company Daewoo and the Korean Telecom, the KT. And the staffs told me that if you want to have large numbers of serving robots working in the restaurants, indeed it's not that easy, because you need to make every robot become familiar with every place, every corner inside the restaurant. They have to learn. And also, in order to prevent the robots from clashing to each other, and you definitely want to make them walk and work smoothly. So you will need to have good signal and quality quality of Wi-Fi with good after service and keep monitoring if the robot itself on the internet is really working well. So the cooperation between the robots and the telecom company, the robot company and the telecom company is going to be very, very important. And as you can see, it's now become very popular and used widely in South Korea, which means that the cooperation model worked well and it has grown and become a big business.
Right, and amid the advances in implementing these robots in the workplaces, Colin, there are concerns about the loss of jobs for people. That being said, how do you respond to the anxiety of robots and AI replacing people in the workplace?
This makes me think of the experiences I've had bringing friends or family from America to Korea or meeting up with them. And we go to a restaurant, and I'm sure you've had this experience. The robot rolls up, brings your food, much as we were just discussing. And in a way, it's not that impressive. They're kind of like rolling shelves. But as we discussed, it's a more complicated technical problem than meets the eye. So people are impressed by them, but the conversation always comes around to, yes, the replacement of humans by robots. And we see videos online on social media of robots doing complicated things, making sushi or breakdancing or whatever the case may be. And these are, of course, they're proof of concept. These companies that make the robots put out these videos where robots do human-like activities as a way of showing how high their technology is. But it's a little bit of a failure of imagination, I would say, to think, what's the future going to be like? The same as now, except the jobs are all being done by humanoid robots. Probably not. I mean, if you think of the history of technology, go back to the printing press or the automobile. When those came out, when they were propagated, when people started using them en masse, what happened was society or civilization was reorganized around them, around the printing press or around the automobile. It changed what the world was. It wasn't so much that these inventions got slotted into the existing world as the world conformed to them. And now the internet, like you could say, civilization is reorganizing itself around the internet or smartphones, especially here in Korea, some might say. And so when you think about that, the question becomes more, what do we do about robots taking human jobs? It's less that than, what will the world look like? Jobs will be different. The definition of a job will be different. I mean, think of the people you know right now, all the jobs they do. 50 years ago, how many of those jobs existed at all? So we need to think a little bit more holistically, shall we say, about what's going to change? How will the world fundamentally change? And less about sort of protecting specific jobs from being overtaken by robots that look like the humans that are doing them now, which is not going to be the way it happens.
Right, hopefully not, of course. Chen Hao, as reported by The Independent, the British online newspaper that covered Korea's adoption of robots in the workplaces, it said that Korea has been investing billions into robotics because of a shrinking workforce, given, of course, our alarmingly low birth rate. What has the foreign media been saying about Korea's labor market in general, Chen Hao?
As you can see, because of the low birth rate, more and more old people, they tend to keep working after retired in South Korea. And the positive point is that they still have many chances communicating or having interactions with people instead of becoming lonely. But another point is that the older generation still have their limitation. They can't do everything. Then the robots will be adopted. The problem is that the robot will not only substitute those older generation can do, but also they are able to do those middle-aged or young generation people they are able to do. That is to say, it is likely to replace many jobs and opportunities of every age groups in some extent. But when I was covering the restaurant adopting the AI serving robots, I've asked the owner, so will the robots replacing the human staffs? He said that hiring a person equals to the pay of seven robots. But the human staffs are not gonna disappear. He still hires them, he still needs them, and the robot is a way of only making the staffs more easier to work in the restaurant. And the president of the robot company also told me that what he wants is not the robot, or it's not the robots replacing all the human staffs, but making the robots be able to do the job which is too annoying or too dangerous or too risky for the human, which can provide work efficiency and security and safety for human staffs.
Right, make their work a bit more convenient then.
Right.
Colin, apart from adopting robots in the workplace, Korea has been seeking to attract more migrant workers into the country. Now, this year, Korea brought in a record, and I believe it was a record high of 165,000 non-professional migrant workers to ease the labor shortage here in the country. There are plans, of course, in the works to further expand their presence in various industries. What are your thoughts regarding such efforts?
It makes me think of a TV show I saw a few months ago, an interview with an Argentine who came to Korea and now works as a train driver on the Gimpo Gold Line, I believe. And they were making a big deal out of him, like, oh, look at this Argentine who came here and he drives a train. They're all very excited. And I'm thinking, as an American, that's not that strange a job for an immigrant to be doing, is it, driving a train? But here, it still is a novelty to see that particular class of job being done by a foreigner, and a Korean-speaking foreigner as well. Now, I've been called to speak about certain proposed changes in the immigration policy of South Korea, whether it's at the country level or the city level, city of Seoul. And there is something that frustrates me a bit about these proposed changes, is that they're always framed as changes to immigration policy, when in fact the goal does seem to be, as you say, the attraction of foreign labor, and often on a temporary basis, to bring in foreign labor for a period, sort of with an eye of not having them around permanently. That's not immigration, I would say. It seems a little bit like a symptom of trying to solve a problem too late, when it's become too close to the crisis point. You know, if you want to grow an orchard, you can buy mature trees and try to plant them and hope for the best. They may not survive. You've got to plant the seeds and grow the trees. The analogy here is what I think would work a little better is bringing in genuine immigrants, people who want to have a life here permanently in Korea, and maybe their kids can become the professionals Korea is looking for, or not just professionals, but workers at any level. That's something that doesn't really get addressed clearly, I find, in these discussions of policy in Korea. But, you know, there are many examples of other countries, which we'll talk about later, which show that if you're thinking you want to bring people temporarily to cover a temporary labor shortage, if the shortage goes away, even if it's due to an economic downturn, the people don't go away. So I think that's a scenario that's not being considered quite as realistically as it needs to be.
Right, and before we delve further into that, Chen-Hao, capital Seoul here last month, it shared plans to hire foreigners as bus drivers on neighborhood routes now. Do you see a gradual expansion of work opportunities for foreigners in diverse fields here in the country?
Yes, comparing to like 12 years ago when first came here, you can see that now the more and more companies here are willing to hire more foreigners working. But I am very critical. I have a very critical stance. Like if we talk about like the issues like the Seoul city government trying to hire foreigners to become like the Green Village bus drivers, the Maul bus. We have a problem that because even now the domestic drivers themselves for the Maul bus, the Green bus, they are complaining that their working condition is too bad. If you look at the pay, their salary is only 70% of the drivers for the bus routes downtown, so-called the blue bus, right here in the downtown Seoul. That's why you can see that many green bus drivers, they are very old. They are almost over 60s. They are no young people, no younger generation bus drivers are willing to join, and it is always short-staffed. So that means that if the situation cannot be improved, you are just making foreigners doing the things that the domestic workers, the domestic people don't want, and paying them less in order to save money and make the staffs being fulfilled. I don't think it's a good phenomenon for public transportation, and it is not going to do any good things on maintaining the quality and safety.
Right. Chen-Hao, Seoul's welcoming, however, Filipino helpers this year made quite a bit of foreign headlines as well, because their pay, of course, was equal to the pay of workers here in the country as well as helpers. What are your thoughts regarding the Filipino helpers here in Seoul?
I was so busy because of this, because many Korean journalists contact with me, asking me what is this like in Taiwan. They're trying to comparing with the experience between Taiwan and Philippines, because we already imported like Filipino and Indonesian workers during the mid and late 90s. And anyway, back to Korea. The country and the Seoul metropolitan government, they say they decide to push this due to the problem of low birth rate and labor shortages. As many people complain that the burden of paying for the care sector is too heavy, which make them become unwilling to give birth. And in Korea, we have some debates that should those Filipino helpers at least being paid by the minimum wage here. And some who stand in the basis of the human rights claiming that they should be, they should instead of being exploited. But others are arguing that the price is still too high if being paid by the minimum wage and making only rich people affordable. And indeed, if you look at the current situation, many of those hiring Filipino helpers are based in Gangnam, which is the rich area of Seoul. So will bringing the Filipino helpers to Seoul really improve the problem? I doubt it. But should the Filipino being paid at least by the minimum wage? Frankly speaking, it's always not easy to take care of babies and elders. They should be treated well too. But if the pay is too low, those people might just run away, or they're just going to hide themselves, and it's going to cause more problem inside the country. So it will indeed become a very dilemma as the nation's social welfare system is not good enough, or is still not affordable to deal with this.
Right. Well, it is a trial phase right here in the capital city. Whether or not it will be expanded remains to be seen, of course. Moving forward, Colin, what do you suppose makes Korea an appealing destination for foreign workers?
Well, if you think about workers from, shall we say, less developed countries, I think the reasons are obvious. You know, they come here and say, oh, look at this transit system and look at how orderly the roads are, look at how clean everything is. Now, you say to a Korean how clean and orderly Seoul is, they'll ask you, what city are you talking about again? You know, but I think oftentimes the Korean perception of Korean society is negative enough that it makes it hard to see some of the qualities that attract foreigners, be they workers or not. And I'm not even just saying from the less developed side of the world. I mean, many of the articles that come out on this subject about workers who come to Korea or foreigners who want to live here also bring in, say, for example, Americans, such as myself, and they'll say, like, even compared to the United States, ostensibly a more developed country, you know, they'll say, well, Korea has a lack of violent crime that I enjoy. It has, as I say, the infrastructure is of a very high level, higher than anywhere in the United States. And so I think there are many reasons, but they're not clearly visible to Koreans who are a little too used to them. But of course, the wages are much lower than in the US, for example, but they're much higher than in, say, Vietnam or in the Philippines. So you have to take all of this into account at once. But clearly, people from all different kinds of countries have found Korea a good place to call home. Just many of them have struggled with the visa side, the employment side, the economic side occasionally.
Right, and staying with that, Shin, how? So amid plans to further expand the presence of foreign workers here, concerns still remain regarding their treatment. Could you tell us a bit more about this?
Indeed, I'm not trying to say it means all, but many foreign laborers, especially those coming from Southeastern Asian countries, working in the farms or factories in like Chun-soo or Chonglai areas, many of them, they are facing serious difficulties of being exploited. I just attended a press briefing 2 days ago, which the 3 laborers claiming that their payment were being delayed or being forced to work longer hours without any additional fee. Even one of them who worked in the factory was not being provided with proper masks and equipment. So later he found that he has health problems and he had 40% of his lung cut. They were unable to obtain any kind of assistance from the government, and they want to file lawsuit themselves, but their duration of stay is going to be expired. Many of them are like that, and if they leave Korea, then it will be impossible for them to fight for their justice. And the lawyer and the NGOs and the labor union staff here in South Korea told me that they are receiving these kind of cases every year and every month. And currently we do have labor standards inspection here in South Korea, but seems that the system itself is unable to fully protect the foreign laborers from being cheated or exploited, especially for many of them who are unable to speak Korean. It is hard to deal with these kind of problems.
Right, and unfortunately, this plight faced by foreign workers in different countries, it's not just the case here in Korea. Such foreign workers are also facing such difficulties in countries like Japan, Singapore, and Germany, I believe. Could you tell us a bit more, Colin?
Those are often brought up as 3 examples in these policy proposals to which Korea can be compared, or to show the pitfalls, I suppose, Korea could fall into with these immigration policies or foreign labor policies. Germany has a long history of bringing in foreign labor, longer than most Asian countries. So one of the main groups that's been there a long time, Turks. There are many Turkish immigrants, and now there are sort of 3 generations of Turks who were initially there as foreign labor. They had children. Their children have had children, but there's still a feeling that they are apart from mainstream German society in many cases. Or more recently, Germany brought in many Syrian refugees, accepted many refugees, and you can find many cases of refugees who went to German schools up through tertiary education and still feel like they were never accepted there, and so have left for other parts of Europe, which you can do if you have an EU passport. At least that's relatively easy. Japan has made a lot of efforts recently, and I saw on social media the fruit of one of this was a sign posted on a convenience store that said, in Japanese, please give regard, or please treat well our foreign employees, because they're still learning how to integrate into Japanese society and to speak Japanese. I myself in Japan, when I've gone there, have seen foreign workers in stores, which is something you don't see in Korea. And they seem to be, they can speak Japanese. They seem to be sort of getting along. I think it remains to be seen how, say, other sectors like agriculture or sort of more labor-intensive, more industrial sectors of the economy can handle it, because you hear stories there of workers brought in explicitly, temporarily, come here for a few years, get skills, get sent back, and you have the ones who escape early because the conditions are too bad, and then the ones who don't want to leave at the end. So you have both of those dangers that are difficult to avoid on either side. And Singapore, with a very small population compared to South Korea, has the trouble of, well, I think it's something like 1/5 of the population is foreign-born in Singapore, and the resentment that has arisen amid the native-born population about the foreigners taking their jobs has kind of sprung up again after the death of Lee Kuan Yew, who's considered to be the father of modern Singapore. His idea was, oh, good, let's have foreign workers here, and they can spur on the Singaporeans. They'll sit up and work even harder if they have foreign competition within the country. But now, his era is over, has been over for a while, and there's a sense that, look, we have to make policies so that foreigners can't take Singaporean jobs. You hear the same thing in the US, foreigners taking American jobs. So whether or not the perception is true to the reality, the perception itself, if people start thinking foreigners are taking our jobs, that will influence policy and maybe influence economic competitiveness, which in Singapore is a huge value, is a huge sort of selling point for that country.
Right then. Back here in Korea, Chen-Hao, what can the government do perhaps to better accommodate its foreign workers, do you think?
I think providing those foreign laborers like legal protection and consulting is very important, because many of them, they can't speak Korean, and if they face any kind of situations, any difficulties, they need help. And many of them, they don't even know what's the law, what's the legal system going on. So they need some people to help them to deal with these problems. And also trying to confront. I think the government has the responsibility to trying to make sure the labor environment and condition is well. For example, is this working place really safe, and is the security equipments full being operated? Try not to make those the incidents of like people died of accidents, this kind of things happen, because you can see not even for foreign workers, but the domestic worker, that happens to the domestic workers, you can see every week, right? So I think the government needs to pay more attention on these issues.
Right, for sure, workplace safety.
Yeah.
All right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. Chen-Hao, as always, thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
And Colin, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, well, that ends this week's editions of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and see you same time on Monday.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu.